Understanding the Principles of Kinetic Sand, presented by Tim Lyons. Sand that sticks to itself. A fun alternative to Play-Doh or clay is kinetic sand. It looks like regular sand, but it neither feels like it nor behaves like it. First of all, it's easy to model like clay. It sticks together and can be molded into shapes, but it feels silky and it doesn't stick to any other surfaces. It only sticks to itself. Here are the ingredients that we're going to need in order to make the kinetic sand. We're going to need sand, cornstarch, dish soap, and water. Now there are also other ways of making kinetic sand, which I will talk about after this. Here are the steps. First, add 1 cup of sand to a bowl. Then mix in 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. In a second bowl, mix 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of dish soap. Then slowly mix the soapy water into the sand mixture a little bit at a time until it achieves that silky texture and starts sticking to itself, but not so much that it becomes watery. And here are some photos from a similar project that I got off of onelittleproject.com. As you can see, all you need is the cornstarch and sand, and it's very simple to mix together and to start making shapes with. So how does it work? Kinetic sand is regular sand that's been coated with silicone oil, normally. So let's talk about this version first. Silicones are polymers. They're long chains of repeated units made up of silicon and oxygen. These long units form strings that hold things together. Other recipes for kinetic sand call for the use of silicon oil that surrounds the sand grains and then holds them together in chains. Now, as you can see, our recipe does not call for silicone oil, and at first I thought maybe that the silicone was coming from the sand itself. But after a little bit of research, I discovered that we were basically by using baking powder and soap, we're emulating the process, but we're not actually creating a true silicone polymer. Most of the other, many of the other versions, the commercially sold versions of kinetic sand do contain a silicone oil. Another interesting description of kinetic sand that I found online on thought.com is that it's an example of a dilatant or non-Newtonian fluid, that it increases its viscosity under stress. So this is why you can take the ball of kinetic sand and you can squeeze it together and it will form a shape, and it will actually hold that shape for a few minutes, maybe even longer than a few minutes, but then it will slowly begin to pull apart and drop down. So under pressure, it behaves like a solid, but once that pressure is released, it begins to act like a fluid. A very common form of an interesting example from every day is ketchup. Ketchup is is a fairly loose liquid that's easy to pour until you shake it up. And when you shake it up, it becomes a very thick liquid that will actually form a pile, much like the sun. Non-Newtonian fluids do not follow Newton's law of viscosity, which is that constant viscosity independent of stress. In non-Newtonian fluids, viscosity can change when under force, to either become more liquid or more solid. And like I said, an example is ketchup. And that is it for my final video demonstration for this semester. I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation on kinetic sand, and have a wonderful day.